Hello all, it's Jim Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade, and I'm jumping down a rabbit hole. Reasonable people usually take a look at things like this and say, it sounds all a little bit too far-fetched to me. However, reasonable people used to look at Alex Jones and think the guy was a lunatic, and now he seems to be the shining prophet of 2020 who warned us all about what was coming. And so now here we are. Well, I don't know if it's breaking news. However, it's news that's filtering up to the masses like me. This may be a story that's been known about for some time by certain peoples in the knows, and this may be a story that's been ignored because it's got a certain bit of hugeness to it. Let's put it that way. However, it is a story nonetheless that I think the American people should know about. So, we go way, way back to the time of Venezuela, when Hugo Chavez was just a politician trying to win election in Venezuela. And this unknown election machine called Smartmatic was created to help him win the election in perpetuity in Venezuela. Well, I don't know if individuals saw this information as being, useful for purposes. Why individuals in the West would think that, this looks like a good idea, we should invest our money into it. But these things have happened. Let's lay it out here. So, Smartmatic was founded by 3 engineers from Venezuela and officially incorporated in Delaware in 2000 after the Hanging Chad controversy in the 2000 U.S. presidential election. Smartmatic established its headquarters in Boca Raton, Florida. Please note that Venezuela is a close ally of the Chinese Communist Party. Both Venezuela and China are socialist countries. Well, that's neither here nor there. I don't really give a shit about that. Okay, so the year is 2004. Smartmatic expanded rapidly between 2000 and 2004 with offices in Venezuela, London, Florida, and California. Litigation of its connections with the Chavez regime never ended. Smartmatic bought Bizta, in which both Smartmatic and Venezuelan government had large stakes. The Miami Herald revealing that the Venezuelan government owned 28% of Bizta, a company operated by 2 of the same people who own Smartmatic. Bizta bought back those shares after the article appeared, and Smartmatic now characterizes the deal as a loan. Bizta and Smartmatic had partnered with Venezuelan telephone giant Can TV to win a $91 million contract to supply electronic voting machines for Venezuelan elections, including the controversial 2004 referendum where Chavez won. Smartmatic categorically denies any link to the Chavez regime. Sources. That link. Smartmatic was a little-known firm with no experience in voting technology before it was chosen by Venezuelan authorities to replace the country's election machinery ahead of a contentious referendum that confirmed Mr. Chavez as president in 2004. Another source. The year 2005, Smartmatic purchased Sequoia Voting Systems, one of the leading U.S. companies in automated voting products. The years 2006, Sequoia provided technical assistance in the elections held in Chicago and Cook County by sending a number of Venezuelan nationals to support the machines manufactured by Sequoia. Meanwhile, a Carnegie Mellon University computer science professor recently concluded after 2 days of testing the vote totals at Sequoia model, different from those used here, could be manipulated. That prompted Pennsylvania's Allegheny County to scrap plans to buy the machines. Source here. The federal government is investigating the takeover last year of leading American manufacturers' electronic voting systems by a small software company that has been linked to leftist Venezuelan government of President Hugo Chavez. Source here. Smartmatic Corporation sold its U.S. subsidiary, Sequoia. So Smartmatic Corp sold its U.S. subsidiary, Sequoia, to end a review by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. into whether Smartmatic is partially owned by the Venezuelan government. Source here. Bain Capital, which is connected to Mitt Romney, purchased Sequoia. Okay. Source here. Please note, Mitt Romney is in Biden's hard drives from hell with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Another thing, the whole hard drives that every news agency has decided to not bother to look into that actually do exist. The year's 2011. Dominion Voting Systems, a previously little-known Canadian company, engaged in manufacturing electronic voting hardware and optical scanners, acquired Sequoia Voting Systems. All right, so Sequoia was gotten rid of by Smartmatic, went over to Mitt Romney, and now Mitt Romney has sold it to Dominion Voting Systems. Sequoia filed bankruptcy under Chapter 11 in the Bankruptcy Code. SGO, Lord Malloch-Brown, acquired Smartmatic UK. This is where things start to get really interesting. Lord Malloch-Brown is part of the Queen of England's Privy Council. In fact, he is an actual member of the House of Lords. And he is on George Soros's payroll. All right. So Smartmatic's chairman is a member of the British House of Lords, Mark Malloch-Brown, a former vice chairman of George Soros investment funds, former vice president at the World Bank, lead international partner at Sawyer Miller, and a political consulting firm, and former vice chair of the World Economic Forum, who remains deeply involved in international affairs. The company's reported globalist ties have caused members of the media and government officials to raise questions about its involvement in the U.S. electoral process. All right, so if you're following me here, Lord Malloch-Brown, a member of the House of Lords in the United Kingdom, on the Queen's Privy Council. Now, I'm not alluding that the Queen is behind our election process. In fact, because he's on, everyone's on the Queen's Privy Council. If you're a politician in the UK, and you're part of the House of Lords, for instance, you're like pretty much automatically put on the Privy Council, just because it's a just one of those things. It's tradition. So just because this guy's on the Queen's Privy Council, I probably shouldn't even talk about it. It's kind of stuff that doesn't really matter for the conversation, but it does. Because in a way, the owner of the person who owns the Dominion voting systems, that is responsible for figuring out the U.S. election in many of these swing states, is actually owned by a politician in the United Kingdom. But that's not controversial enough. No, that person was a longtime person on the payroll of the infamous George Soros, that is like the poster child of conspiracy in the United States. George Soros is the devil, and he's responsible for everything bad in the world. And here it is again. Another thing somehow tied to George Soros, and that is Dominion voting systems. It's sad is what it is. So the fact that somehow everything can get tied back to this guy is just really scary. And now the implication of the changing hands of these companies and that deal with voting software is that the Dominion voting software was not exactly foolproof. In fact, it purposely put in backdoors that allowed people with admin ability to change votes if they wanted to. Any admin, which is a lot of people. It's not like it was just the governor who had admin access. It's not like it was just one person, one nonpartisan person whose credibility was on the line. No, it was all kinds of random volunteers working in the election committee. It's a little bit creepy how unsecure our election process is, where the actual voting software itself can be tracked back to Venezuela, and the creation of a voting system that was designed completely to flip the election in perpetuity for the dictator in Venezuela. So I think this is where Sidney Powell's going with this information that she was talking about, that she seems very stark and sincere about. So if Sidney Powell feels that this is very sincere information, I don't think we chalk this one up as a conspiracy theory here, folks. This is about as bad as it gets. Anyway, I'm James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade. This is my content. Hopefully you're worried about this look at how Dominion voting systems came to be and how it can be directly tracked back to Venezuela and Hugo Chavez. Right. Again, I'm James Johnson, aka Softblade. This is my content. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, all, peace.